Yes.
Welcome to the group discussion for the container security group. Today we've got just one agenda item, but it's a big one, and that's planning breakdown for the group level policy management feature. We've been doing policies at the project level for quite a while now, or at least working towards it for quite a while. I think we officially turned the feature flag on by default in 14.3. And naturally, the next step is to move that to the group level and eventually up to the workspace level where users can set policies once for their entire organization. But that being said, I'll just dive in here. I'll do the best I can to walk through some of these mocks, and we'll see if there are any questions. So the requirements, you should be able to link up a security policy project to a group. I didn't detail everything here. I think hopefully most of this is self-explanatory from the way things work with projects. Basically, it should work the same way. And you should now be able to have group policies that flow down and apply for all projects inside of that group. Right now, we're focusing just on scan execution policies. So we're not worrying about group level network policies or any other policy type. We're just keeping it simple with scan execution first. So due to that, policies are going to be marked either project or group. We'll have a new page at the group level, security and compliance policies. And again, all of those should just flow down. You should see those listed at the project level policy page, but it will be read only, because if you want to edit it, you really should be going up to the group level to edit that so it's clear where you're making that change. For mocks for this, Camelia has done a great job of iterating on this and getting some feedback along the way, but we'll be adding a new source column. And here it says where it came from, whether it came from this group. So this would be a group level view, or whether it was inherited from something above it. And now we won't have workspace policies yet as of this feature, but this is to give you an idea of how something would show if it was inherited. And for now, it's just going to apply to all the projects inside of that group. We'll worry about filtering those later, but it gives you an indication. It makes that super clear right here. It says the policy applies to all 56 projects. And if you try to click on something that's inherited, you get this read-only message, so you can't change it here. And same thing, this would show like a project level view. You're seeing things that are coming down being inherited from the group. Same thing on the side. This is a new
Sam, sorry to interrupt. Is that view is that a view from that's a view from a project? Yeah, yeah, it is.
Yep,
yeah,
this
cool.
one is a project level view. Yep.
Cool.
And again, we won't have the workspace policies yet, but when we do, that's how they'll show up. And if you click on a policy, you get this sidebar. I know we've got a separate effort to fix some of the UX layout for this sidebar. But the big thing here is the source, the addition of the source section. So that would be the piece that concerns this epic. We're going to work on aligning the UX for this in a separate effort, but just for this piece, it's going to be sourced. It says this is a group level policy. And again, it applies to all 39 projects in this group. And same thing at like the group level, or if it's coming down from a workspace.
So could you go back one more?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that one right there. So one thing that I just noticed is the change history. I noticed it only refers to merge requests, but a policy may not necessarily have a merge request to be changed, can it?
The execution does.
Yeah, but because like what's preventing someone from making a commit? There's the approval rules, right?
Let's see. Yeah, that's true. But this,
I see what you mean.
That's a good call out. That is outside of the scope of this particular epic. Just to be clear, the piece that we're adding in here is just the source. And then we actually have a separate epic to fix the rest of this sidebar. But
yeah, it's a good point.
Nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, you could say changing permissions is part of the scope of changing a policy, so it should show in the history. But I think we'll have that discussion when we focusing on that particular feature.
So I'll make a note to go find the design or the issue related to that and get feedback on that. But I don't want to derail the meeting. So go ahead.
Thank you.
No worries. And that's a great point of feedback. Yep. So for now, we're just adding in the source section would be this epic. And then the other change on the front end. So for a group level policy, you won't get this banner if it's a project level policy. But if you create a new group level policy or edit one, it just makes it super clear by including this banner up top saying, you know, after you enable this, it's going to apply to all 36 projects in the group. So that way we don't have users accidentally creating a policy and then not realizing the scope of impact that change is going to have for their organization.
I have a question there.
Yeah.
So you created new policy from the project view.
This would be at the group. Should be at the
okay. Just the breadcrumb says GitLab or GitLab that implies project.
I'm guessing that was an oversight on the mock.
Yeah, that's a cool. Yeah. No, that answers my question. Thank you.
Also, it says GitLab test project on the left-hand side, but
That's true.
Oh, we stickler for details here, aren't we?
But this should be only for group level policies, despite the misleading mock here.
Thank you. So, you mentioned something at the start, and you said you didn't provide much details. How do we actually do the linking? Because for projects, when you go to threat management, it offers you the chance to link. What's the idea for groups?
Be the same thing. We're not reinventing the experience there.
So the same menu item exists at the group level, and you go in there and say, hey, you don't have one, let's link it.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
create a new one or link an existing one.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I believe the way it works right now, it doesn't actually tell you, hey, go link a policy project to this. What happens is when you try to create a new policy, it automatically creates the project for you.
Right.
What happens when you hit edit though? There's a
At that point, it will have been created. So like if I come in.
Yeah, you can add it manually. Oh wait, I guess you can't anymore.
So you just create a new policy is all you do. And when you create that new policy, it automatically creates the new project and links it up. I'm not an owner of this project, which is why I don't have that option up here.
That's some pretty confusing UX. Do we
you can use
have that
the demo.
That?
Sorry, Brian. I was telling Sam that he can use the demo project, demo group in production.
But Brian brings up a good point. We should probably have some sort of banner at the top if you're not the owner of a project when you go to policies to be like, hey, you're not an owner.
Don't bother doing all the work.
Yeah, so we've got actually priority number 2 here, this follow-on improvements for the security policy editor.
That's true.
And I think most of these things, there's a big long list of issues in here, but I think we've got issues covering that better handling when users do not have permissions to create a policy.
Oh, right. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. But
That does sound related.
Yeah, so we do have an issue out to fix that. It is confusing UX. So instead of display, if you're not an owner and there's not one that already exists, the proposal I've got here is to display an empty state and direct them to have the project owner create the security policy project. Because actually in that workflow where I started to go down, because I'm not an owner, it actually would not let me create the new policy because I can't, because I'm not a project owner. So it is really confusing UX. I'm hoping we can clean that up here soon.
Yeah, I'll let all the front end people know to start working on that.
And Brian, the issue that you were mentioning earlier, cleaning up the drawer, that's in the Epic as well. This top one right here. Anyway, so yeah, that would be a great. But yeah, I think most of those are in this follow-on improvements section. I think the majority of these are front-end work, but there actually may be some back-end as well.
I have a question about this. I was just typing up I was actually looking at the Epic preparing for this meeting, and that's why I was late. So I was typing up a question on the Epic there, and you may have addressed this already, but there's a lot of styling updates to the list. And like you mentioned, some of it's covered in the follow-on Epic that you just showed. Some of it is new. What is required for releasing this? Like, could I make group level work, but have it look like it does now, and then put the rest in a similar follow-on? Or what do you think?
Yeah, so I think we've got other issues in the follow-on one to clean up some of the styling. If we don't have all of that covered, we should probably create those, but the scope of this one is limited to adding the new source column. So like, the other styles that you see over here, you can disregard those. I think we've got other epics and other issues to cover them. Like this pending and open merge request, that's covered. Just given the nature of how we break up our work, it becomes a little bit complicated for UX to give it iteratively in the exact sequence that it's going to be developed. And so what ends up happening is UX just ends up, creating mocks for the end state. But just to show you some of this breakout, like we've got provide a UI-based policy approval workflow. So we've got this epic down here that you see some of the things in there for, and this is where we're introducing like the, the open merge request, the pending changes, all of that stuff. So that will come later, Alexander. For this one, the biggest thing to worry about is adding in the source column here for the list view, adding in the source section for this side drawer.
Creating the policy page for a group at the group level.
Yeah, policy page at the group level, giving this read only pop out for if it's an inherited policy that can't be edited here.
Saying, wait, was that inherited from a group to a project?
This example is for a policy that's inherited from workspace. We won't have workspace yet, but if you're looking at the project view at a policy that's inherited from the group, then you would get the same read-only popover.
Got it. And all right, and a user is not able to edit a group level policy from the project level, correct?
Correct. Yep.
And
the last thing would be this info box. So yeah, there are more things in these mocks than are included in the scope, but if you kind of pair, the requirements with the mocks, really the effort for this is focused on adding policies at the group level. We don't need to match everything that's in the mocks.
Cool, thank you. I saw, can you go to the mock for the group level policy list? Is this it? Yeah. This just might be a mistake, but the fourth policy down is a network policy, which is not inherited from a policy project. Is that network policy should not be supported at the group level?
Mock. Yeah, that's just another result of the mock. For this effort, we're only doing scan execution policies at the group level. We're not doing network policies at the group level yet.
Cool.
Yeah, in fact, you see here, there are scan result policies in this mock. So there's a lot in this mock that we have not built out yet. But don't worry about anything that's not specifically tied to group level scan execution policies.
Awesome, thank you.
I added a question. Is it possible to link a project to a policy project if that project belongs in a group that it's also linked to a policy project?
Project level policy, yeah, I see what you're
Brian,
saying.
Brian likes that
Yeah.
question, I can tell. Do you want to answer it, Brian?
So I think we probably want to have all. So you're talking about subgroups, right?
Yeah, I'm talking that there's a group here, there's a project here. You go to this group and you link it to a project, to a policy project. So this guy is now obeying those policies there. Then you come to this project. Can I link it to another policy project? And if yes, then there's follow-up questions, but let's start with that one.
So I would say that there's not a hard product requirement. Obviously, we start running into some design things. If the answer to that question is no, then we need some error states and some warnings, or we have to tell the user that. From a functional perspective, I can't really see a problem with that. On the project page, you would see every policy duplicated twice. It would be there once flowing down from the group level, and it'll be there again because it's there on the project level. But if there's some other backend limitation or reason that we can't do that, then like I said, there's no like user requirement to have it mapped to both. So if we need to design up some mocks for some error states to prevent that, we can.
Okay, so we inclined to say yes, you can link at a project level and also at the group level. And I'm hearing that the resulting policy at the project level is additive, meaning whatever you had at the group level, you add to the project level. There's no attempt to merge them by name or by whatever.
Correct. Yep. Everything is additive. So far, we do not have any policies that directly conflict. So if a group level policy says to run a scan and a project level policy says to run a scan, we can just run both scans. There may be some cases in the future where policies conflict, and we've got some good ways to deconflict those, but right now we're not running into any conflicts. Everything is additive.
Yeah, well, the one thing I can think of is if there's two policies with the same name, you might be able to override a group level policy with a project level policy, because we use the name as the identifier right now, unfortunately. And so if you have two policies with the same name, it will use whichever one it finds first. So in that case, we would, have unpredictable behavior. And it might be possible for someone to kind of like get around a group level policy or workspace level policy.
That actually may not be a bad thing, because there actually may be cases where, in fact, I know there are cases where customers do want to override things for specific projects. In that case, rather than just having it be random, we should probably hard code that to say that the project level policy overrides the group level policy, is the feedback that we have from customers.
Yeah, I think we should be intentional about it rather than just making it a way of working around an edge case. So currently, we should probably just make sure that you can't create two policies with the same name across groups or workspaces or projects.
Across groups, meaning subgroups, right? We've got parent group A, then subgroup B, and then project C. So between A, B, and C, you can't repeat names of policies.
Yeah, I still haven't wrapped my head around how this is going to work with subgroups. So you're talking out of my depth right now.
I don't understand the mechanics either of the backend, but from an object level, I think a group is a group is a group. It like you get a menu where there's a group or subgroup, and then it just changes what's in the contents of that group.
There is a difference between groups and subgroups in the back end. So that's another note, I guess, while we're on that topic, which is why, from the back end, it would be ideal if we can implement this associated to the new, I think they're actually calling it namespace.
Yeah.
Object on the back end. And that way we can build it once and have it apply to everything. But coming back to the duplicate name creation, I'm fine if we want to go that route. There's no, if you look at the proposal for the Epic, it doesn't spell this out. So that's intentional because there's not a strong preference here. That I'm fine with whatever direction we choose. Just a note though that, we might run into some steep recursion logic if we start validating that, because if you link a new policy project, you're going to have to check all of the policies for that project or for that group policy project compared to all of the policies for all of its sub project and parent group and subgroup, and so that could get a little bit messy. But I'm not particular on how we handle the duplicate name problem. Having it be random is not okay. But if we do want to just override and say that the project level policy always overrides the group level policy if it has the same name, that's fine. If we want to prevent duplicate name creation, I'm fine with that too.
I think this is going to come up again when we're refining this and we have a better idea. We actually look at the back end and see how things tie together. We might say, hey, can we do it like this? Or can we do it like that? But for now, I think the answer is the product requirements are flexible and we can work with you on it.
Sounds good.
All right. Any other questions? Are we ready to move this to refinement?
So when you said about, when you brought up having the name being random, I had a thought that there's this thing Kubernetes does where it takes whatever name you use and it adds a little random suffix on the end so that the names don't collide with each other. We could possibly do something like that, where when they save the policy, we add that little suffix on the end.
File systems do this when you copy and paste a file. They have a really solid behavior for doing that.
They put an incrementing number, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think the way the stuff that we allow in names is pretty confusing too, because you can have spaces in the name and the name ends up going in the URL. And so you get these really weird URLs when you pull up a policy in a policy editor, because it could be something like / run desk in every pipeline with spaces in it. And
nobody likes
that, right. It doesn't.
Nobody likes
well
percent symbols in the URLs. Nobody likes it. I think we're okay to put that as part of refinement. But Sam, I think we're okay to, from my view, I don't want to answer for Brian and Alexander, but I'm happy to move to the like planning breakdown of the high level issues that we would need for this.
Okay. Yeah, Alexander, Brian, I mean, obviously there are some unknowns, but I think for the most part, those are questions that, you know, at least from my end, I'm willing to allow engineering to figure out the answers to those and be flexible on the product requirements. Thumbs up?
Yeah, I think it sounds good. You know, the most of the stuff we had questions about are just implementation details, right? So we can figure those out.
Yep. Sounds.
So Alexander is going to discuss with his other developers who's going to be the DRI for this. And
Yeah,
I'll go do the same.
I'll get my team together. We'll figure it out.
You should do a video where you're talking to yourself in an editing, you know, that should be good.
Yeah, the front end, the container security front end meeting. It'll just be like I'll wear different hats. So you know.
We use that as an argument to get another front end engineer on the team to say, hey, the guy's going crazy. We got to get someone else.
We do have a lot of work here. I mean, this is priority number 4, so I'm hoping we're not getting too far ahead of ourselves in refinement here. This is probably about as far out as I want to go, so we'll probably take a pause on putting things through planning breakdown for a little while until we can catch up. But, you know, even though we're talking about this today, it is further down on the priority list compared to some of the other things we've got. And, you know, that also is just an important note to keep in mind. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time. Have a good week.
See you around.
See you, friends.